Nerdcore hip hop is not easily defined. The question of what is or is not nerdcore does not have a simple answer. Is there a percentage of songs that must relate closely to fandom, STEM, or high concept to meet the moniker of nerdcore hip hop artist? Must there be a certain number of pop or countercultural references to make a given song nerdcore? Is Deltron 3030 a nerdcore album? Would that make Del himself a nerdcore artist? What does a nerdcore hip-hop artist even sound like? Nerdcore hip-hop veteran Beefy once compared nerdcore to Christian music. It had less to do with the particular stylings of the music and more to do with the messages contained within and how the community was able to connect with it. With all that being said, my name is Steve, and this is Nerd Music and Judgment, a Dying of Exposure series, with the album No Masters 3 by Grayson. Nerd Music and Judgment is a series meant to expose our audience at dying of exposure to geeky music of all types. A large segment, currently, of geek music is couched as a subgenre of hip-hop called nerdcore. In our previous episode, Ultra Klystron's Variable Undefined brought us a very personal, lyrically stripped-down, synthetic-influence piece that expressed an experience of looking back and holding his own decisions and connections in judgment from a modern perspective. No Masters 3 is not only a different point of view from Grayson as opposed to Ultra Klystron's recent release, but lives in a totally different instrumentation and delivery. It is thick with references to video games, anime, and comic books. This album always plays with flow tricks, multisyllabic rhymes, and schemes in a way that would make the listener have to recognize that, while the album bangs like a straight spitting indie hip-hop album on the surface, it is deeply nerdcore to the very soul of every track. Preaching kicks off the album with a big synthetic organ, choir, instrumental, and live-sounding drums, with lyrics that not only punch with lines referencing big properties like Batman, which makes sense given Grayson's moniker, but also clever wordplay related to flipping sayings, if ignorance is misery, then being smart is a curse. Even the construction of the particular lines include language of the geek lexicon, such as replacing hometown with home base. Paired with Grayson's rough, raw voice, this is a strong start in a song that reveals a lot of small pieces of the artist's life, journey, and relationships as they've developed over the last several years in hip-hop. Real maintains the same raw vocal tone, but over a more spaced-out chimes and building synthetic chords piece. This is in a similar space as Preaching, acknowledging detractors and competitors, but includes more aspirational lyrics framed as goals while recognizing their own skill. Manga D guests on the second verse and has a very different delivery than Grayson on this. This comes up as a bit jarring as their vocals feel mixed differently than Grayson's. It stumbles an otherwise tightly done song that is a slight left from the first track. But both of these tracks lead comfortably into the next one. Hokage leads with pizzicato strings with some trappy hats and brings back around the wide reverb choral synth vocals in the background. This is the most direct challenge to haters on the track so far, but with a nice long drop in the second verse, a more spaced, almost cozy flow that fits comfortably to ride the percussion, and a very memorable hook. Hokage makes the most of the whole album so far, and Grayson's antagonism against those that would challenge him. It grooves right and slots perfectly for the mood. Embarrassed is a straight head-nodding boom-bap track. The swing of the beat works, and here we see some more straight spittin' bars. What helps this song stick out more than the three previous, beyond the pitch-down dubs, which works amazingly well on the chorus, is that it feels more personal. Whereas the previous track felt like a challenge to the public, this track feels more direct, as if it's about a specific person. This allows us to connect more directly to Grayson, revealing something more specific about their history and giving example as a more clear framework to the previous songs. Best track of the album so far. Do It All continues the more personal journey, focusing on specific moments like first shows and the early days of mumbling lyrics. It hits early with those Dragon Ball Z references and sticks to simple beat, easier flow style of Embarrassed. This leans more on particular actual moments, referencing specific compatriots in the voyage from starting to rap to becoming a regular season performer. The chorus doesn't quite hit as well as Embarrass, but the consistent personal notes grab me as an audience member and invest me more into Grayson's experience. The next track returns to the form of a broader need to express their feelings about themselves and how they fit, often antagonistically against their field. For My Hustle reconnects to the Family Support Foundation with a bit of a sing-song on the chorus and some of the dubs, which helps it stand out and features Devin Haley in the third verse, doing a better job matching the production feel vocally with Grayson. It comfortably aligns with the previous tracks in delivering cadence, as well as an instrumentation that is theming along the lines of the high-pitched strings, bells, keys mixed with natural drum. Playing for Keeps continues this same process with a bit more of a foreboding melody and a roomier beat. This track holds consistently with the rest of the album, but has one of my hands down my favorite lines in the album. You say stay in my lane when you're not on the road. Regardless of that line, this track gets a little lost in the album, whereas Pardon Me featuring Mickey Fax comes in with the strong melodic hook right out the gate, standing out further by having Mickey on the first verse. It returns to the trap influence hats and the warm synths that are a bit lower, dragged and twisted, and a gentle difference on the production with Grayson's vocals that I really enjoy. On a side note, I really like the video for this song and you should go look it up on YouTube. This is right up there with Embarrass as a standout on the album. Make It Out Alive starts with a demand your attention hook that reintroduces those pitch down dubs. The beat and melody behind this is very metered, almost a metronome of an instrumentation, which juxtaposes nicely against a more mechanically hype-delivered flow. It follows Pardon Me nicely by showing a fully different style than the previous track, but sticks strong with the good cadence schemes. Now we've come to the middle of the album, and we get to two songs that reveal a different sort of take on what makes a song nerdcore. Sleep and Izakai go together perfectly. The first, Sleep, being a track that is simply about loving to get a good 8 hours of sleep. God-damned-tastic. Tracks like this about shared life experience rarely appear, and when they do, they feel like a song not looking to bang or impress or get plays, but just a piece about something meaningful to the artist. Izakai follows up with, at first, contrast. Where Sleep was slow with a delightful underwater synth that matches the theme, the chorus of Izakai is almost silly by comparison, with a semi-Rhodes-inspired synth blurred up to back him. This energetic, high-concept track about falling into a dream world really pops. It is super short and just fun. The two of these together really hold my interest right in the middle of this long album. Wifey follows as a good little slow jam love letter to a woman of interest. It is romantic, extremely reference heavy, and very personal. More of a connection with the individual of Grayson is welcome and appreciated after the pair of conceptual songs that, while very good, were a bit standout and strange on the album. Gamer Not a Gangster is the battle cry of Grayson. These would be his house words if we were in Westeros in Game of Thrones. GNAG is the anthem for those words, and is a crazy beat with a delivery that feels breathless and hectic even when the song slows down. The chorus is meant to be chanted by a crowd. The beat is up, it's high energy, with almost rush-feeling instrumentation. As an anthem to the person Grayson is presenting, this track works real well, but feels late in the album for the type of declaration that it is. A good song that lives inside the property is not simply a list of references or retelling of that property's narrative, but transforms the property to connect with the POV of the artist. Here we have Streets of Rage 2 doing exactly that. Acting as a filter to express themes of the album but seated in the game's world. It works. And with such a great chorus, the chant aspect to it can't be denied, and seeing that chanted by a crowd would be a joy. The strong delivery and reference-heavy lyricism that have been the backbone of this entire album live on in the tracks Cosmo Burn, Hero's Saga featuring Crimson Alchemist, and Be a King. These are all solid tracks, but would often be termed as album cuts. They're for the fans that have already bought into Grayson. They continue to show an ease with both deeply planned flow schemes and bars spittin' casually. Crimson Alchemist blends well with a new flavor on a guest verse on Hero's Saga, and lines like, "'Cause it ain't over till the sexy thick lady sings," continue to play with coined phrases in fun ways. Plus Ultra is hard for me to judge since I'm such a fanboy of all things My Hero Academia. To be clear, I absolutely love this track. So late in the album, we get this hype, upbeat instrumentation with so much energy in the chorus, and the delivery on the verse is perfect. It really opens up on the second verse and rides the beat excellently. And the bridge from the first verse into the hook works wonderfully and is just downright exciting. Hunters featuring Walter West and Letter to M80 are more rooted in verse delivery hip-hop. The first sounding like a cypher track with a beat any talented rapper could deliver to, and they both do, and that outro glitch wraps the song nicely. Letter to M80 is just a short, straight verse that returns to the personal, and while it is solid, it feels less like a single verse flex, and more like a lifted verse from another of Grayson's songs. I will admit this was a bit of a letdown in the penultimate final track, especially when I saw it was going to be so short and likely to be just a single verse. The closure to this album is Shine, and if that had to live anywhere on here, it would have to be the last track. With a soulful beat, backing more conflict with the challenge of standing out as a rapper and receiving the respect that Grayson feels, and rightfully so, they deserve, this track nails a clean chorus and stays loose on the verse. As a final bit of flavor, this comes across as recommendational and aspirational rather than fully critical, recognizing that while this is tied to his past, his childhood, his journey, and his conflict, that shine that he's gained is something that other people, other artists can reach as well. 21 tracks is a lot for a single album, especially in late 2019, October, when this album released. Grayson lives in a world where they feel they have been underappreciated, doubted, and dismissed, and they are clear that now that they have talent, support, and peer respect, those people can hop and go fuck themselves. That is far from the only note this album hits, but it is the strongest note, like garlic in Italian food or friendship in Steven Universe. Amongst this album, there are stars that stood out to me. Embarrassed, Do It All, Izakai, Sleep, GNAG, and Plus Ultra are the immediate standouts in my mind. There are also tracks that, while solid, I feel tread the ground of better tracks that may have been moved to a different release for better impact. I will admit that I do not easily, as a performer myself, empathize with Grayson on the level of feeling undervalued. It's not to say that everyone loves what I do on the microphone. I am just at peace with the falseness, the self-advancing, the two-faced behavior of many other artists, creators, and performers, and I have no expectation of anybody recognizing the work I put into things. That being said, Grayson absolutely deserves the respect of his peers. He is talented, he is clever, funny, interesting, and does in fact stand out from other MCs in the nerdcore hip hop space. This album receives a B letter grade from me. It's a worthy purchase, and the B is not due to the lack of strength of many of the tracks, but due to the lack of editing of how many tracks there are. Had this been a tighter release with fewer songs on it, where they had trimmed similar pieces to be maybe a B-side or a secondary EP, I think it would have elevated the whole album experience. But to be clear, there is no track without worth on it. Grayson's flowmanship and reference-heavy words alone will spark your interest song to song. Thank you, Grayson, for grinding, honing your craft, and giving me the opportunity to dive into No Masters 3. And thank you, audience, for listening to my review. This has been Nerd Music and Judgment, a Dying of Exposure series. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on podcast, you can sign up for notifications wherever you prefer to listen to. You can get Grayson's music on the links below, and follow up with more Nerd Music and Judgment on Dying of Exposure. I've been Steve, and these have been some great nerd tunes.